Hey beauties and bees, welcome back to the show. And yeah, it's that time of the day again where we do our skincare together and talk about seriously spooky stories. And tonight's story will not disappoint you. Yeah, so today I want to share the story of a man named B. We don't know his name, so let's just call him B. So this man, B, says he had this terrifying experience while living in Korea that he will never forget for the rest of his life. So get ready for the story, settle in, bring your drinks, snacks, and your skincare, and let's get into the story. Hey beauties and bees! I'm going to do a little shop with me moment today because I just did my, monthly, bi-monthly, more often than necessary skincare haul. And obviously I bought a lot. So I was thinking, do you guys want to see what a Korean skincare obsessed girl like me actually buys? So first off, cleanser. This is the Arencia Fresh Green Rice Mochi Cleanser, and I am obsessed with this cleanser because you can use this right on your makeup, so no need for a cleansing oil or anything. Does it leave any residue? No. Even with one wash, everything just melts away. And Anua. This is for that glass skin base. Rice extract helps brighten and smooth your skin, and it's milky, so you get that hydration and glow at the same time. This one is the JUMISO Niacinamide 20 Dark Spot Correcting Serum, and it has 20% niacinamide, which is actually pretty high. When I have dark spots or uneven tone that I really want to focus on, I use this. And Mary and May PDRN Serum. And this one is really interesting because it uses spicules to help absorption. And PDRN is known for skin regeneration, so this feels like a treatment step. This is the Meditherapy Retinol Skin Booster Serum, and I've been really curious about Retinol lately because I heard it's kind of like the next step up from Retinol. But I don't like anything too harsh, so I liked that this one has calming ingredients like centella and niacinamide, so it feels like something I can actually use consistently. Okay, now let's talk about sunscreen, because sunscreen is something that I use every single day. I hate sunscreen that feels stuffy and clogs my pores. So for me, sunscreen has to be so light that I literally forget I even applied it. And this one is a gel type. Have you ever tried a gel sunscreen? It's crazy. It's super watery and really comfortable, and it's just perfect for daily use. Yeah, so I don't really buy randomly. There's a reason for every product that I bought. Yeah. Actually, it's really good timing because Yes Style is having their mega sale right now, and I think it only runs until the 14th. So if you need anything, you can use my code KFBATB15 for 15% off everything. No minimum. And I will link everything I got in the description so you can browse through it. Happy shopping! B's hometown is a small rural village in South Jeolla province, which is in the southern part of Korea. And according to him, there is one house in that village that no one must ever go near. So this house has stood empty for nearly 50 years, and the villagers have always stayed far away from it. The house sits halfway up a hillside. To its right was a small church, and to its left, an old apartment complex. So on the surface, it looked like an ordinary house in the middle of a quiet residential area. But there was something strange about it. The apartment complex had been built around the house, wrapping around it on all sides, as if the builder had deliberately avoided it. When B was young, he always wondered why, and he would later find out the answer. Every time anyone tried to demolish that house, someone died. As a child, B remembers his grandmother pulling him aside and warning him, "Don't go near that house. Don't even walk close to it. Something terrible will happen." But he didn't take it too seriously. He assumed it was the kind of thing adults said to keep children out of dangerous places. He thought it was some kind of an empty threat, a scare tactic. But when B grew up and learned the true history of that house, the shock and horror never left him. So the story begins in the 1970s. A couple lived in that house, but they were no ordinary couple. Both of them were shamans. So in Korean folk religion, a shaman is called a budang. Shamanism has existed in Korea for thousands of years. Shamans are believed to act as intermediaries between the living and the spirit world. And they perform rituals called kut to heal illness, drive away evil spirits, and communicate with the dead. And this ritual is a serious and deeply rooted tradition, not to be confused with performance or theater. In those days, there was not a single person in all of South Cholla province who hadn't heard of this couple. They were so famously gifted that they had even appeared on television. People traveled from every corner of the country to have their fortunes read, and there was always a line stretching out of their front door. The wife was a 신내림 무당, which means a shaman who had received a spirit descent, meaning a deity had entered and claimed her body, granting her spiritual powers. And the husband was a popsa, a male ritual practitioner who studied sacred texts and performed ceremonies through discipline and training, rather than spirit possession. Together, their rituals were said to be so powerful that even the most stubborn, evil spirits would flee. There were countless people who claimed to have been healed of illness after the couple performed a ritual for them. The problem was money. As their fame grew, the couple grew blinded by greed. In the beginning, they had healed the sick and cleared dark energy from troubled homes. But at some point, they began doing something else entirely. They started performing curse rituals. People came to them with requests: ruin this person, make this person sick, kill this person. And the couple, in exchange for large sums of money, did exactly that. In Korean shamanism, this is considered the gravest possible taboo. The reason is that when a shaman uses the power of the spirits to harm another person, they will eventually pay the price themselves. The harm they inflict will return to them in equal measure, and this is called 벌전, divine punishment, or literally penalty money, a debt owed to the spirit world. The couple surely knew this, but the temptation of wealth was too great to resist, and then the punishment came. It was a summer day, and the wife was performing a large ritual on the hill behind their house, which was a ceremony she had been paid handsomely to conduct. And as part of their final stage, she was performing hwajeon, a fire offering in which paper or cloth is set alight as a sacrifice. Then, without warning, the flames caught the hem of her clothing. It happened in an instant. The fire spread across her body with terrifying speed. She screamed and writhed on the ground. And then something inexplicable happened. There were others nearby, posal, ritual assistants, and musicians who accompany shamanistic ceremonies. Any one of them could have helped her. They could have thrown water on her, smothered the flames with cloth, done something. But no one moved. They all stood there, staring as if something had seized control of them. As if they had been put under a spell. The wife was engulfed in flames, screaming, rolling across the ground, the smell of burning flesh filling the air, and not a single person lifted a finger. And by the time anyone snapped out of it, the wife was already charred black. She lay on the ground, burned beyond recognition, like a lump of coal. Her husband was devastated by her death, but he didn't stop. If anything, he got worse. Whether it was grief twisted into rage, or whether greed had simply consumed him completely, he continued performing curse rituals alone. About a year later, he was conducting a nerimgut, an initiation ritual for someone who was to become a new shaman. In Korean shamanism, it is believed that certain people are chosen by spirits against their will, often manifesting as severe mental or physical illness. The only way to be cured, according to this tradition, is to accept the calling and become a shaman. So this nerimgut is the ceremony that formally initiates them, during which the spirit fully descends into their body. The final stage of this ritual involved jakdu, standing barefoot on the upright blade of a large cleaver. The jakdu ritual is one of the most dramatic demonstrations in Korean shamanism. A shaman stands with her full body weight on a razor-sharp blade. The belief is that when a deity is fully present within the shaman's body, no injury will occur. This can be seen in Korean documentaries and television programs, and many shamans genuinely perform it without harm. And the husband was a veteran who had stood on the blade hundreds of times without incident. But that day was different. Without any warning, he fell backward off the blade, as if someone had given him a sudden, violent shove. His head struck the ground, and he died instantly. And so both shamans met their end, violently, inexplicably. The villagers whispered to one another. They received their poljan. They paid what they owed. But the truly frightening chapter had only just begun. After the couple's deaths, the house sat empty. No one wanted to go near it. Then about 2 years later, a family moved in, and they didn't know the history of that place. The family that moved into the house was a couple in their 30s, along with their 2 young children. They had come from another region and knew nothing of what had happened there. The villagers, for their part, said nothing. They were worried that the word of deaths would bring down property values in the area, so they just kept quiet. And the couple loved the house. It was up on the hill, so the air was clean, the house was spacious, and above all, it was cheap. They wondered why the price was so low, but decided it was simply a stroke of good luck. The first few days after moving in were peaceful. The children were delighted by all the space. The parents were happy. The neighbors watched and thought, maybe this time it'll be fine. But strange things began to happen, slowly. The wife noticed it first. When she was alone in the house, she had this constant feeling that someone was watching her. The feeling was strongest near the staircase on the 2nd floor. Every time she went up or down those stairs, she felt a chill crawl up her spine. Then the children started seeing things. "Mom, there's a woman on the 2nd floor." At first, the wife assumed they were playing a game, but both children said the same thing independently. A woman in a red dress, they said, was standing in the 2nd floor hallway. The wife grew anxious. She told her husband the house felt wrong, but he just brushed it off. "We're just not used to the new place yet. Give it a few days and it'll pass." It didn't pass. About a month after they moved in, something horrific happened in that house during the night. The next morning, neighbors heard screaming and ran over. What they found there was something they would never be able to forget. The wife was discovered on the 2nd floor staircase. A kitchen knife had been driven into each of her eyes. She was lying on her back on the stairs, face turned upward toward the ceiling. Blood running all the way down to the bottom of the staircase. The husband was found in the kitchen. He had been stabbed in the throat. The wound was so deep that blood had continued to pour from his mouth and neck until the entire kitchen floor was a pool of red. The 2 children were found on their room on the 2nd floor. Both had socks stuffed deep into their mouths. The police concluded they had suffocated. All 4 members of the family had been killed. The police ruled it a robbery gone wrong. A burglar had broken in and murdered the family before fleeing.
But the details didn't add up. Nothing in the house was missing. Cash, jewelry, electronics, all of it was exactly where it had been. So a burglar had supposedly killed 4 people and stolen nothing. And there was no sign of forced entry. Every door and window was locked from the inside. The killer was never found. The villagers began to whisper. It wasn't a robbery. Something in that house had done this. But no one said it officially. There was no evidence, but everyone thought it. After the killings, the house sat empty again. The first family's deaths had left the house empty for 7 years. By now, it was known throughout the village as a haunted house, a cursed dwelling. Then one day, another family arrived. This time, it was a couple in their 40s, living with the husband's elderly father, a man in his 70s, and a teenage son in high school. They too had moved from out of the area, so they knew nothing about the house. The villagers worried, but found it nearly impossible to say anything directly. How do you tell someone, don't move in, people have died there? The few first months were peaceful. This was a genuinely warm, close-knit family. The couple was known throughout the neighborhood for their loving marriage. The son was an exceptional student, ranked first in his school, well-liked by his peers, cheerful and energetic. The grandfather, despite being in his 70s, was in excellent health. Every morning, he took a walk around the village, helped his grandson study, and played Korean chess with the neighbors. So the villagers thought, maybe this time it really will be fine. But then the strangeness began, slowly, like rot spreading beneath the surface. The first to change was the grandfather. One day, he was seen walking through the neighborhood wearing his daughter-in-law's blouse. The family assumed it was a mistake, confusion perhaps, as happens with the very old. But a few days later, he was seen wearing his grandson's high school uniform. That wasn't all. Late at night, he would go out to the yard and stand in the dark, murmuring to himself and staring up at the sky. His words were incoherent, and occasionally he would break into a strange, high-pitched giggle. During the day, he seemed perfectly normal, but when night fell, he became a different person entirely. The neighbors assumed it was dementia setting in, but it didn't stop there. Next, the couple began to change. The 2 people who had been famous in the neighborhood for their harmonious marriage suddenly began fighting. Not small arguments, but violent physical altercations, grabbing each other by the hair, throwing objects, screaming every single day. The neighbors could hear them through the walls. The wife was seen fleeing the house with blood on her face. The husband's arms were covered in scratch marks. The strange part was what they fought about. Later, people learned the triggers. The food was too salty, the door was closed too loudly, the other person's expression looked strange. Things that in any normal relationship would have passed without comment. And these were not the actions of the people who had moved into the village months before. Something had changed inside them. Last to change was the son. The top student, the model teenager, began behaving in deeply disturbing ways. During class, he would suddenly start smiling to himself, quietly at first, then more and more openly. When teachers asked him questions, he wouldn't answer. He would just smile. Then he would begin slamming his forehead against his desk over and over until blood ran down his face. And still, he wouldn't stop. Outside of class, he hid in the girls' bathroom to frighten students. He was caught carrying the carcass of a dead rat wrapped inside his school jacket, cradling against his chest like an infant, pressing his cheek against it and whispering, "My baby, my precious baby." His friends were too frightened to go near him. His teachers had no idea what to do. The school urged the parents to take him to a doctor immediately, but the parents were too consumed with their own violence to pay attention. The village now had no doubt something was wrong with that house. The dead shamans were reaching out from wherever they had gone, and their curse was spreading through the walls. The head of the village women's association finally went to speak with the mother directly. She told her everything. The shaman couple, their deaths, the first family. Please, she said, bring in a shaman. Have a ritual performed. If you don't, something terrible is going to happen. But the family practiced a different religion. The mother dismissed what she heard as superstition. We're just going through a hard time. It'll pass. The Women's Association head had nothing more to say, so she went home. 2 weeks later, it was the final day of Chuseok, Korea's equivalent of Thanksgiving, a holiday when families gather to honor their ancestors. That night, the husband killed his entire family. The grandfather was found in the master bedroom. The wife was found in the living room. The son was found in his room. All three had been stabbed repeatedly with a bladed weapon. The entire house was soaked in blood. Then the husband walked out. He climbed the hill behind the house, and he hanged himself from a tree. The next morning, villagers found his body. When they saw the exact spot where he had chosen to die, a chill ran through all of them. It was the very same place where the female shaman had burned to death 20 years before. This was too precise to be coincidence. The second family was gone, 2 families, 8 people, all dead. After the second family's deaths, the house was fully abandoned. No one touched it. No demolition, no sale, nothing. It was simply left as it was. Villagers averted their eyes when they walked past it. They said it felt as though the house was watching, which made no rational sense, and yet everyone felt it. For a while, the local government and a private development company saw an opportunity. The land was valuable, sitting right in the middle of a growing residential area. If they could just tear the ruin down and sell the cleared lot, everyone would benefit. So they tried. The first excavator operator assigned to demolish the house died in a traffic accident the night before work was scheduled to begin. The company brought in a replacement crew. On the morning they arrived to start, one of the workers collapsed on site, rushed to a hospital with a sudden brain hemorrhage. He survived, but never fully recovered. So the company quietly pulled out. A second firm was approached. They lasted 1 day on the job before their equipment began malfunctioning in ways no one could explain. A third company refused the contract outright the moment they heard the address. A county civil servant overseeing the project requested a transfer shortly after. He wouldn't say why. So word spread through the industry. No one would take the job. The village chief, watching all of this unfold, finally decided something had to be done. Not with machinery, but with the only thing that seemed to speak the language of whatever was in that house. We have to perform a ritual, he said. The villagers pooled their money and brought in the most renowned shaman from the surrounding area, a woman in her 50s who had been performing rituals for over 30 years. She was confident she could handle whatever was in that house. She set up a ceremonial altar in front of the cursed house. When the sun went down, the ritual began. At first, it looked like an ordinary ceremony. The shaman dancing with spiritual fervor, chanting, offering food and drink to the spirits. But as the time passed, something shifted. The shaman's movements grew more and more violent, less like dancing, more like someone fighting something off. And then her voice began to change. At first, it was her own voice. But then other voices began layering over it. A low male voice, a sharp female voice, multiple distinct voices emerging from a single mouth. The villagers stepped back. Then the shaman stopped dead. She slowly raised her head. Her eyes had rolled back, only the whites were visible. And from her mouth came a voice that was not hers. This house is ours. It was low and ragged, like the voice of something that had been buried underground for a very long time, and was only just managing to open its mouth. The villagers froze. Then the shaman began to scream. She tore at her own hair, clawed at her own face, and threw herself across the ground. The villagers were too terrified to move. Suddenly, the shaman lurched to her feet. She tilted her face toward the sky and screamed at the top of her lungs. "Anyone who touches this house, I will wipe out their bloodline." In the same instant, blood began to pour from her mouth. Not a trickle, a torrent, a full gush of dark red blood spilling from her lip as she collapsed face forward onto the ground. The villagers scattered, screaming. Many believed she was dead. A long silence passed. Then the shaman moved. She slowly pushed herself up to sitting and looked around, dazed. When she saw the blood soaking her clothes, the color drained from her face. She began to tremble. "I can't do this," she said. "I cannot do this." She left without collecting her altar. She left without looking back. The villagers ran after her, calling out to her, but she didn't stop. She didn't turn around. She didn't say another word. And she was never seen in that village again. And after that night, no one tried to touch the house again. Not the county, not developers, not anyone. It wasn't a formal decision. There was no meeting, no official declaration. People just stopped trying. So there it sits to this day. Decades have passed since that ritual. The roof half caved in, the walls smothered in vines, every window broken. Weeds in the yard standing as tall as a grown person. Untouched, unsold, undemolished. The house that no one can touch, even now. An apartment complex was eventually built years after as part of a broader local development plan. But around the empty house, leaving it untouched at the center, like a gap in a row of teeth. And that is why the apartment complex surrounds that house on all sides to this day. So what do you think about this story? Is there a house in your neighborhood that has stood empty for no clear reason? A place that no one enters, that no one touches, that everyone seems to instinctively avoid? If so, let me know in the comments, and that is a wrap for today. Sweet dreams, guys, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.